All right, in this lecture, I'm going to introduce you to a really cool resource that lets you download a 960 grid Photoshop template along with Sketchpaper and CSS and a whole bunch of other stuff that you probably won't really need right now. You'll probably only really use the Photoshop grid system download. You might also use the Sketchpaper, but why don't we get to it and I'll show you how it all works. So go to 960.gs. That is the number 960.gs. And then right here, you'll be taken to the 960 Grid System website. Now, I talked a little bit about the grid in a previous section, in the visual design section, but the grid system on the web is usually based around the 960 grid system. Now, the 960 grid system is kind of an effort to streamline web development workflow by providing commonly used dimensions based on a width of 960 pixels. There are two variants, the 12 and 16 columns, which can be used separately or in tandem. So for those of you who noticed, I just read verbatim the body copy right here. But that's essentially what it is. 960 pixels wide. If this website right here is 960 pixels wide. The container right here, as you can see. And the rest of it is just white space. Now, a lot of websites now are bigger than 960, but the idea behind the grid is still very important. And so that's why it's good to start with this. When you're working with responsive sites, that is mobile-friendly websites, and you have different widths for your design, it kind of gets a little bit tricky. And I know some designers, I've worked with some web designers who give me multiple Photoshop documents, one for desktop, large desktop, tablets, phones, so on and so forth. But what I usually do is I just design one version of the site, the desktop version, using a 960 grid. And what basically happens is I'll build it in Bootstrap or a responsive framework that just automatically will make those the layout of the website responsive. Because you're building on a grid, the CSS and the responsive, the media queries will already know how to align and arrange the layout of the website based on the device you're on. Now, if you don't know much about responsive design, everything I just said might have been a bunch of mumbo-jumbo jargon, and that's okay. If I confused you, totally disregard what I said. We'll get into responsive web development later in the course. But for now, let's just stick with the 960 grid. Hit that big old download button. And then go ahead and open that up, unzip it. Check it out in your Finder here. And you'll be given a series of folders: app, plugins, code, licenses, logo files, blah, 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 blah. Basically, the only thing you'll really want to concern yourself with is the templates for Photoshop, even OmniGraffle if you want. If you're using Pixelmator or Visio, Illustrator, Fireworks, CorelDRAW, Balsamiq. But Photoshop is there too. You got the 12 column grid, PSD, 16 column, and the 24 column. And then those are just PSD files. You could just straight up open those, and that will give you a PSD file here with all of the guides set up with the columns and the gutters. The gutters are the space in between the columns. And it also has a 12 column grid overlay that you can turn off here to design your website so you don't have pink bars everywhere. The other cool thing is you can install an app plugin. So you can install the Photoshop 960 grid action plugin so that in your actions palette right here, you can go to actions, click on 960 grid, go ahead and click on one of these. If you hit play, it'll create a new file with that grid built right in. Here it is. And so, yeah, you basically just need to follow this install.txt. You can read that text right there if you want to go that route. And you can install the actions. Essentially, I could just give you a quick little rundown. All you got to do is go right up here in this top corner, load actions, and then you just find that action template right there. Boom, open, and it should be in here. Then there's also code if you want to play around with some CSS, but you don't really need to do that. And sketch sheets if you want to print some sketch sheets for wireframing. You can actually print these out, and they're using 12, 24, 16, and 24 column grids. So pretty cool. It's a great resource. You can go ahead and download that. I'll provide a link in the resources section of this lecture. But all you really need to do is go to 960, that is 960.gs. See you in the next lecture.